Episode 7, Axe and Sword. Chapter 7, Axe and Sword. For that day's search of other districts, Kazuya decided to take Jin with him. They were going back to Kichijoji, to let his neighbor know that his daughter wanted to stay with Alan and to speak to Jin's mother and stepfather. There was also a house where the resistance members in that district had been based. However, the home was ransacked and they could only identify the bodies by ID cards in their wallets. One of them even had the matchbox, apparently a special one-off print set to a small chain of bars throughout Tokyo. The owner of those bars was the one who had established the group as go-to, and his followers began rising in power. As bad as that had been to investigate, one would have thought going to see Jin's mother was far worse by his reaction.
"I don't let her know about anything anymore,"
he said, speaking over the wind and rain.
"I'm old enough to take care of myself. At least let me let her know that you're safe and alive,"
Kazuya said.
"If she really doesn't care, I don't have to say anything more."
"Humph, if you have to," Jin said, looking aside.
"Thanks, I guess."
He meant that more than he was acting like. Kazuya nodded.
"Sure, I can meet you over at the south entrance to the mall if you want."
"Yeah." He headed off, so Kazuya gave him a bit of time to get reasonably out of sight. Then he went to the house and knocked on the door. There were lights on in this rain, and the windows looked intact. He was hopeful that there was someone here. After some tense exchanges behind the door, a man opened up the door with a silver crucifix clearly in hand. Troll, who had been staying out with him in case of ambushes, winced and stepped back.
"Who are you?"
he asked warily.
"Excuse me for that, and the interruption,"
Kazuya said, recalling the troll for the moment.
"I'm using that one to destroy the other demons. Is this where a boy named Takashi lives? I'd like to speak with his mother."
"Takashi?" the man asked in surprise.
"Well, legally, he does live here, but we've hardly seen him around for months. He hangs out with one of the gangs around here." "I'm aware of that, but I'd still like to speak with his mother,"
he said.
"Who is it?"
a woman asked, sounding like the one from his dream last night. The man was familiar from it too.
"Some young cop who wants to talk about Takashi,"
Jin's stepfather said. Kazuya shifted his umbrella.
"I'm only a rookie, sir, working independently at the moment."
Jin's mother still came up to the door.
"Did he get arrested again? I'm sorry, he's a lost soul and we can hardly reach him." "No, it's not about that," he said. "I just wanted to pass along that he is alive and well in spite of the current situation. I offered to let him come with me today, but I wasn't going to force him once I knew this address." "Well, that's good to know,"
she said, relieved, and clasping a cross on a necklace.
"As long as he's alive, there's still hope for him."
He nodded.
"I can tell that he's shut out a lot of people already, but so far, he seems to respect me. I promise you, I'll keep an eye on him and show him a better example of who he could be." "Thank you, sir, I hope he can open his heart to you," she said. "God will come to save us, we just need to have faith and hold out for him."
While Kazuya wasn't a believer, he didn't want to offend them.
"I'll let Takashi know you're still thinking of him," he said. "Yes, we do love him and hope he'll come back to us someday,"
the man said. But Jin's mother came forward.
"Actually, well..."
She closed her eyes.
"There's something I should tell him, but I only thought of it when he stopped listening to me. I thought it'd make him shut me out entirely, but he's done that anyhow, so..."
"What is it?" Kazuya asked. She opened her eyes, but wouldn't quite look at him out of shame.
He's not actually my son. What?
Her husband asked, shocked.
My first husband was a vile man,
she said, a thin frown coming to her face having to mention him. But that soon vanished into shame and sorrow.
The child I had by him, well, he died as an infant. And that man thought it was appropriate to bring me another infant that he claimed was his own, also that no one would know about the death. I was able to cut myself off from him after that. But that baby, my Takashi, I couldn't abandon him. Not even as he grew up so wildly, where I could barely control him. I tried to show him love. Maybe because he wasn't my own, maybe he could tell that without knowing, but he's always given me a hard time even though sometimes a more caring side shows out of him. I had no idea of that,
her husband said. She shook her head.
I'm sorry, sir, for troubling you with such a strange story. I keep having a bad feeling. I wanted someone to know the truth, someone who could tell him that if I couldn't. There's so much I wish I could have done differently for him. I love Takashi and I wish I could make him see that.
It was strange, was Jin ready to hear that kind of thing?
I understand,
Kazuya said.
I'll let him know if you can't tell him yourself. Thank you,
she said, bowing to him. He said goodbye to them, then waited to make sure they had the door locked securely. It wasn't certain if that would stop demons, but they had holy symbols like that cross. They should be fine. Looking up at the sky, he knew he should get done with their business quickly. This rain could grow stronger from the looks of the clouds at the horizon. Outside of the mall, he found that Jin had already gotten in trouble, with a larger teen wearing a makeshift security uniform. The label as such was taped on and the pants didn't even match.
What are you doing listening to that asshole?
Jin yelled at him.
We all agreed to work against him when he was a local jerk throwing his weight around, and now you're working for him. Hey, keep up with the times, Jin,
the guard said.
Ozawa's shot up the ranks to become Gota's right-hand man. If you want to stay in power, you gotta stay with those in power. They're going to keep Tokyo safe and we're helping. You're just feeding into that guy's ego,
Jin said, then nearly glanced at him. He quickly turned back to the guard, taking the gang band off his arm.
Well, that's it, I'm quitting for real this time. I'll make my own way now.
He then stormed off in the opposite direction.
You're a idiot, Jin,
the guy called back angrily. Kazuya closed his eyes and sighed. Jin would need a lot of work. But then, he could figure out what he was doing and appreciate it. They still needed to question those in the mall to see if any of the missing girls had family taking shelter in the mall. The guard might not talk to him if he was seen speaking with Jin right now. Although, if this man was working under Ozawa now, it might be tougher to get in. He still hurried to catch the guard before he went back inside.
Excuse me, could I ask you something? We're not allowing demons in the mall, so you'll have to recall yours, summoner,
he said disdainfully.
I'm aware of that,
Kazuya said.
I'm looking for relatives of girls named Yuka. Are there any here? Don't think so,
the guard said.
Besides, we're supposed to hang on to them until Goto can find the right Yuka. We're telling any folks that have girls like that that they're being taken care of. But I haven't had to say that to anyone. We're trying to get the girls to calm down and accept their current situation,
he said, grateful for the misunderstanding.
That's why I'm looking for them. Well, I'm pretty sure there aren't any here, but I'll forward a message if people ask questions,
the guard said with a nod.
Sure, that'll work,
Kazuya said. Wanting to see what he could find out, he added,
any word on what's been going on with the hospital? Well, the militia was working with is dead,
the guard says.
Too bad, since absolutely nothing came out of his research. I was hoping for some of those enhancements he was advertising, you know? The local police and their snot-nosed academics are keeping their silence on what went down. Hey, if you've got a good ear, can you pass up that we really need to bust up their pride and do something to break them up? Sure, I'll pass that along,
he said, opening up his comp. But his note was to send a message to the chief that the gang guards were considering this.
How is the demon spread around here?
The guard shrugged.
I wouldn't know, I've just been told to keep them out of the mall. Once the rain lets up, we're gonna round up those holed up in their homes and bring them here. It seems safer. Got it. Thanks, I need to move on and catch some other folks to question. Don't get yourself sick out here, alright?
The guard said, waving before he went back inside. He hurried over to where Jin had gone.
Man, this has been a bust for me,
Jin said.
I feel like I shouldn't have come back. Other than my neighbor, it seems like none of the other yuccas were from here,
he said, nodding in agreement.
But your mother was worried about you. I told her I'd look after you. You don't have to be doing that,
he said, rubbing his head.
But, thanks, I guess. They doing okay? Yes, they've got themselves barricaded in safely,
Kazuya said.
Let's move on to the next district, I don't think we want to be in this weather too long. It feels like too long already,
Jin said, heading with him to the Echo building. Kazuya spoke with him through the day, trying to give him things to think about. But he kept bringing up figuring out if his father had been speaking the truth in the dream and searching for stronger demons to take on. And he did have that black-headed axe, far deadlier than any of their other weapons or spells. Another night, another dream. Kazuya felt like he was starting in the same place. By dream logic, Alan should be in the opposite direction that Jin had been. He headed that way. As he thought, he soon came across Alan's soul.
Oh, we're dreaming again?
Alan asked.
I had a feeling something was familiar about this place. Sure, what are you doing?
Kazuya said.
Well, I feel like I have something I should be doing,
he said, rubbing the side of his head.
Like I heard what I was supposed to do, then forgot. I wanted to find something that could remind me of that, if it was anything. Sure, if we look around here, we should find something, he said.
Alan nodded, not going to question that logic in a dream. As they headed onward, the maze changed its nature again. It took on the messian color of white and blue, had the melody of law in Kazuya's head. But he had a feeling that if he could check a map of this place, he'd find that the two areas were mirrored. When they checked on the first room, they found a woman in heavy makeup leaning against the wall. She had a skimpy outfit on, a short shirt that showed her toned torso and very short shorts.
Oh, Yuji, how nice of you to drop by,
she said cheerfully.
You want to come by for some tea as family? Sorry mother, not right now,
Alan said, embarrassed. Maybe he wasn't quite as naive as Kazuya had thought. Or at least he knew about some things.
I'm looking for something with my friend here, something I should be doing. But, I'm not sure I'll find it here. Probably not, she admitted. But you know, I'm so proud of you, dear. I couldn't have given you a better life if I had been trying to raise you. You just be sure to treat women nicely, okay? We have to put up with a lot from men who think they can take anything from us.
He did bow to that.
Of course, mother.
He seemed nervous about being noticed here.
I hope you're doing well. I'm getting by, that's about the best I can do,
she said. But she either didn't mind it that much or was really good at hiding her feelings.
I love you, dear, don't throw away your life on a bad cause. I won't, take care of yourself,
Alan said, then left with some uncertainty to him.
He's a good boy, I don't have to worry about him,
Alan's mother said.
You run along too. If you're one of his friends, you shouldn't be around here. Yes, I'll be watching over him,
Kazuya said, then headed after Alan. He still seemed embarrassed.
Hey, don't worry, I won't judge. You would be one of the few,
he said, rubbing his head again.
She gave me up for adoption, I got taken in by a Messian family who really supported me. They let me choose a name more fitting to the group when I was 13 too. But they wouldn't let me forget I was born of sin. And, well, she decided she wanted to be a part of my life anyhow, so she'd come by occasionally to see me. She'd take me out to tea houses, generally safe places. I liked that when I was a kid, but then I learned what she actually did, and, well, she cared enough about you to make sure you had a good life and kept in contact,
he said.
Just from that, I think she did the best she could in her circumstances.
Thanks, Alan said.
I don't hate her, I do wish she'd find some other work. I'm sure she could do something. Well, never mind that, I don't think it's important. Let's keep looking.
Further down the path, they came across one of the Messian priests.
Alan, you've not been in the dorms the past few days,
he said.
I'm sorry about that,
he said, trying to keep calm. Kazuya remembered what he had said about the many school rules he had to deal with.
I was visiting a few friends when the martial law came down and got me stuck in Kichijoji. I'll check back in, I promise. Sure, we mean to search that district tomorrow,
Kazuya said.
I'll bring him by. Thank you,
the priest said.
I hope you're keeping up with your studies and devotions. Well, I have my devotions in my bag, but not my class books,
Alan said.
I've been getting in extra devotions studies in the meantime, the scriptures too. Good, because someone like you can't afford to slip up in studies for the sake of your soul,
the priest said.
You have an important role to fulfill, as do we all. Yes, sir,
Alan said meekly.
Sir? I have a feeling I was told to get something done, but I can't remember what it is now. I feel like it was something very important. Were you? If it was important, you shouldn't have forgotten.
His expression was stern. Alan was trying to keep his cool, but this man intimidated him.
Yes, sir, but, we've been rather busy trying to oppose the demon invasion,
Kazuya said to cover for him. He felt like they should end this quickly.
He did speak to the angels and received a blessing from them. But it was under adverse circumstances, so letting things slip in the face of fighting to survive is understandable. If you're battling the demons, you are doing God's work,
the priest said.
And, you spoke with angels. Yes, sir,
he said, holding up his right hand.
What I do remember was that he said dark times were ahead and I needed to survive them for something, that's what I can't remember. But he granted me healing powers, which I've been using to support good fighters like Kazuya here. Is that so? Humph, healing powers are good, but won't be enough in the face of the demonic hordes.
He reached over and touched Alan's head.
If you are going to offer yourself as a front-line fighter, you should have the capacity to do some devil slaying with your own powers. Ah. Yes, Sir,
he said a bit weakly. Kazuya caught his shoulder as the priest vanished.
Ugh, this. What did he do to you?
Kazuya asked. After he steadied himself, he could finally answer.
He granted me the ability to use sand spells. That's good, I shouldn't have to rely on you and Jin all the time now. When we did the rescue, I had to hang back to heal the girls they got out. That's good, he said.
Alan, a voice called from further down. He went still at that.
Oh, that's the angel I spoke with. Let's go see him. Sure.
He ended up following after Alan, since he seemed eager to see if the angel could remind him of what he had forgotten. In another room, they came across a powerful-looking angel. He had the head and arms of a blue-skinned human, but many red-feathered wings were obscuring the rest of his body. Alan was quick to bow to him.
Haniel. I'm sorry, I don't recall all that you told me, and now that's bothering me. Don't worry about it at this time,
Haniel said, clasping his hands together in front of his wings.
You are accomplishing what I asked of you, step by step. It shouldn't be long before you remember. However, the one thing you must not forget is your faith in God. Others may try to tempt you away or cause you to question matters, or even insult and degrade you. But you must never ever lose faith in God. It is important to who you are.
He was relieved at that, putting a hand to his chest where he'd normally be wearing a crucifix.
Good, thank you. And I won't forget. It is important to who I am. Giving you only healing and support magic was a test of your resolve,
Haniel said.
Since you have already received attack magic now, I should grant you this. It has belonged to you all along.
He offered a sword to Alan, one that seemed to have a too thin blade and a strange quality.
Okay,
Alan said, unsure of receiving a sword. But once he held it, white flames sprang out from the thin blade.
Ah! That proves you are the one that God chose,
Haniel said.
It will teach you itself. Use it wisely. Yes, I will,
Alan promised as the dream faded.
And Kazuya,
Haniel said, in spite of the dream ending.
Please open your heart. We're waiting for you to return. What?
He mumbled. But he was already starting to wake up. Even though it was a dream, he had given his word that he'd take Alan by the Messian school. He considered taking Jin along, but knew that he'd react badly when he heard where they were going. So he left Jin with the group's tactician, a man that seemed a good fellow and reasonable man. Since Jin needed better male role models, that should help him out. While it was lighter than yesterday, it was still raining as they made their way to the private school. Kazuya had looked up weather reports and it seemed the rain wouldn't clear up until tomorrow. He had also found news that other nations were now considering Japan to be a danger zone, quarantining them like a highly contagious patient. Although, that was a reasonable course of action with the demons around. He just hoped the other nations wouldn't go for more drastic measures like nukes. The school made sure they were private, with a brick wall and iron gate keeping the buildings away from the surrounding city. Alan ran his card through the security box. Then they had to wait.
Usually it doesn't take this long, he said. They're probably being careful with the demons,
Kazuya said. He had already sent away Troll and the few others he had recruited or fused in the past couple of days. Then a crackle came from a hidden speaker.
Alan, who's the man with you?
A woman asked.
This is Kazuya, a friend who's been looking after me lately,
Alan said.
He's a rookie cop from Kichijoji. All right, please come in quickly.
The gate clanked in unlocking and rolled aside automatically.
We're glad to see you back safe, please come to the front office first.
Sure, he said, leading the way there. They were told to wait there for the student counselor and headmistress to show up. From the looks of things in the hall, this school was keeping their classes going for the students that had managed to stay here. Glancing around, Kazuya saw a number of unfamiliar items, probably things important to the church, a listing of beatitudes, whatever that was, some common prayers framed like pictures, and a carved wooden cross on the desk. He asked Alan about the beatitudes and got a long explanation that it was a list of blessings upon the meek, the lost, and others who were the least of all. It was a promise that they would be honored by God when judgment over all was given. With those bright cheerful eyes at explaining something he loved, Alan seemed like a very different person briefly. By the end of that, the two staff members had come to see them.
We're glad you were able to make it back, Alan,
the counselor said, shaking his hand in greeting.
There's still a few other students missing, but we've managed to keep our campus safe. That's good, but I haven't heard from anybody else,
Alan said. He was already back to a meeker attitude, trying not to be trouble.
There was a pair of girls from your school in Roppongi that I found yesterday,
Kazuya said.
They're taking shelter in the mall, which is guarded. We're doing some searching now to check the local situation, but when we have time, we can see about getting them back here. Thank you, that would let us get news back to their families as well,
the counselor said. The headmistress nodded.
Yes, we decided to keep the students here, the families have agreed to that, as our nature as a Messian school keeps our grounds safe. We can take him back into his class schedule now.
Actually, I've been working with Kazuya and others to fight back against the demons,
Alan said, stiffening his shoulders and trying to remain respectful.
I'd like to keep doing so if I may. Some of our older members are doing so, but you're still a student,
the headmistress said.
You shouldn't be out there in the dangerous streets. It's fine, he's been a tremendous help,
Kazuya said, then patted Alan's arm to encourage him.
Show them the sword you got. Oh, right, well,
he put his hand on the handle.
I wasn't going to since I'd have to leave it here if I returned. But, I received this last night.
He then drew out the sword, which quickly lit up in his hands. Earlier, he had said that its name was the Kodachi of Light. Those who were in the office to see it gasped.
That must be a holy weapon to bear a light like that,
the headmistress said, touching the handle in awe. The light dimmed due to that, only to return to brilliance when it was just Alan with it.
I received it from an angel, who also blessed me with healing powers to help in these dark times,
he said, replacing the sword back in its sheath.
So please, the angel asked me to do this, I must stay with Kazuya and help to fight back. He's really invaluable at this time, since doctors and nurses are scattered,
Kazuya added.
I see,
the headmistress said.
Since you bear this holy sword as proof, we must believe you. All right, Alan, it seems that God is trusting you with this grave responsibility. We must trust you as well. We'll let the other students and teachers know, we'll all be praying for your success. Thanks, that means a lot to me,
Alan said, looking overwhelmed at this. He rubbed at his eyes to keep from showing tears.
I'll do my best, for God and for all of you.
On their way out to the terminal in this district, Kazuya started feeling a sense of unease. It grew, although no music was there to hint about what going. There were the usual demons in sight. Maybe an unusual one was nearby, stalking them? Then his chest tensed up and a feeling of alarm spread through his mind.
Kazuya?
Alan asked, in worry, touching his shoulder.
I'm okay,
he said, the words a little hard to come out this time.
But Yuka's in trouble again. I know it, I have to go find her. You two are connected really deeply,
Alan said, then jumped as something growled nearby. He nearly grabbed his kodachi, but then saw that Troll was flickering.
Huh. They will suffer.
Troll declared shakily. Then his skin began tearing down his face.
No, come back,
Kazuya said, recalling him. A glance at the summoning program showed that Troll's data had become garbled.
What a time for a glitch. Let's get going.
To make matters easier, someone had gotten the terminal from the lab into the Shinjuku Mall. Steven had to be involved in that, although Kazuya hadn't run into him if he had come by. Not only had he made the demon summoning program, but Steven had to be an exceptional summoner himself just to have accomplished that with how handicapped he was. And he was still doing work on the program himself. The updates with Kazuya's tutorial and further enhancements, including the icon to the auto map, had come out just his morning. But none of that mattered. Kazuya hurried to the hideout, Alan keeping up with him. They found Jin near the stairs.
Hey, bad news, he said. That, the chick who could be an underwear model, the one that's showed up in the dreams. Yuriko,
he said, feeling angered. Jin nodded.
Yeah. She appeared out of nowhere, grabbed Yuka, then vanished with her after a few words of gloating. She said she was going to execute her immediately in front of the Diet building, on live television. And the networks are already sending out alerts about that. But he only felt a warning of that a couple minutes ago,
Alan said.
It seemed like she's had this getting set up all day,
Jin said.
We going after her? Of course, I think one of the exits here takes us a block or so away from there,
Kazuya said, checking his auto map for this mall.
Let's go. Right after you,
Jin said, while Alan nodded and followed after them. A number of demons got in their way, which was to be expected. What wasn't expected was who was waiting on them near the entrance to the government building grounds. He was someone infamous around Kichijoji.
Ozawa, back off now,
Kazuya warned, keeping his gun at ready.
Who are you to be ordering me around?
Ozawa asked, smirking at them.
Nobody's to get to the government plaza right now and I'm here to see to that personally. Well then it's just as well that you're here, because it's payback time for what you all did to me,
Jin said, nearly as angry as Kazuya just meeting up with him.
Wait, are you one of the skater punks from Kichijoji?
He asked.
You turbos are following my orders now, understand? Not me, I'll pound your face into the pavement,
Jin said.
Hey, we don't have to go that far,
Alan said, mortified at the idea. Normally Kazuya would agree, but if he was keeping them from saving Yuka, he didn't care.
I doubt you can,
Ozawa said, ignoring Alan and opening up a slim comp on his arm.
I'm sure you can't take on this.
He summoned a large amount of what seemed to be zombified soldiers, all carrying large guns of various kinds.
Ha, no problem,
Jin said, sending Marugilao into them and burning a good number away. Kazuya ordered one of his demons to put up Rakukacha, for when those zombie soldiers began firing. Alan picked up on that and did the same. And just in time, as three of them opened fire with a wide spread of bullets. He felt a few strike his skin, but the magic kept them from piercing through. That was good. He then aimed his gun at Ozawa standing past the soldier smugly. Once he had a good shot, he fired and struck Ozawa's shoulder. It caused him to curse since he had not put up similar defenses. He scrambled to flee before he could be injured further. Thankfully, Jin didn't notice that. When they got the group of zombies cleared out, he looked out into the rain.
Ozawa! Damn, where'd you go, you coward? It's going to be hard tracking down someone in this rain, but I managed to shoot him,
Kazuya said.
I'm going in. Pa, I'll find him later,
Jin said, spitting on the ground before coming in after them. Despite the small amount of time since he had felt the first signs of trouble, there was quite a crowd here. Large spotlights were cast upon the paved entrance where a white cross, of all things, had been set up. And Yuka was tied to it. Much of the crowd here were those involved in filming the execution, although a number of the militia soldiers were also there with riot shields and helmets. He didn't care about any of that.
Yuka!
He hurried ahead in spite of his companions trying to warn him to be careful. She lifted her head on hearing him, so she was alert. But then, that also got the attention of Yuriko, who was standing nearby.
Don't you have any sense for timing?
She asked.
We're barely ready to broadcast, I haven't gotten to list this woman's crimes against Japan. I bet those are nothing but trumped-up charges,
Kazuya said, starting up the steps.
I know what you're up to, you just want her dead because I'm hers and she's mine. Well, I'm not going to let you kill her. I suppose you've got me there,
Yuriko admitted.
Kazuya, you're mistaken. I'm the one meant to be your eternal partner, not her. But then you went and chose her in spite of all my efforts to get through to you. I just have to correct that mistake. Goto would forgive her because she does what she does for the sake of Japan, he can understand that with an open heart. But I can't forgive her for taking you from me.
Kazuya aimed his gun at her, not caring that there were people all around them.
I said no to you from the very start, but you would never accept that. My answer to you is never going to change, I don't want you and you should leave us alone. Sorry, it can't be that way,
Yuriko said.
And the sooner you accept that, the better. But since you're here, I'll have to answer what seems like a challenge to a fight.
She put 2 fingers in her mouth and whistled, getting a number of strange ghosts to appear.
You can kill the other 2 boys, just incapacitate my Kazuya and let me take him away. It'll be.
She screeched in an inhuman way as a bolt of lightning struck her. But that wasn't Jin or Alan. That was Yuka, escaped out of her ropes so she could join in. She was currently pulling herself up onto one of the arms of the cross as there was a pile of wood and brambles underneath her.
If someone says no, they mean no,
Yuka said angrily.
Can't you accept that? I will not be denied what I am promised again,
Yuriko said, her face twisting up in a snarl as she turned to face Yuka. Kazuya wanted to help her, but the ghosts were ordered to incapacitate him. Besides, Yuka could handle herself. It'd be better for him to keep from being made helpless by the ghosts and snatched away by Yuriko, like she had done to Yuka. By the time they had cleared out the ghosts, Yuka was still perched on the cross and Yuriko was barely holding up. Seeing that her ghosts had been defeated, she stomped her foot down, broke the heel of her shoe, and had to vanish away, disappearing into the grey rain. Kazuya ran over, Yuka hopped off the cross in time for him to catch her. There was a loud crash as the spotlights suddenly went out.
Yuka, are you okay?
Kazuya asked, hugging her tightly.
I'm fine now,
she said, putting her head on his shoulder. Somewhere behind them, Alan hissed,
What did you do that for? You could have set the whole place on fire. Not likely in this rain,
Jin said, trying not to be too loud either.
They had cameras, but I'm not gonna let them intrude on the 2 of them. Would you? Well, no, but still.
Past them, there were nervous chatter and anxious fears from having watched Yuriko be defeated.
I knew you would come after me, just like in my dreams,
Yuka said quietly to him.
Of course, I'm not losing you too,
he said softly.
Sorry, but I think I should keep those two rascals from breaking out into their own fight.
She chuckled a bit.
Silly boys, I'm sure they'd get along better if they just listened to each other. But you're right, we can still use the help of both of them.
End of chapter.